Welcome to CONEXEC, a global leadership platform for construction executives. This podcast is delivered weekly, featuring a construction executive. We're going to focus in on during this podcast on, both current and aspiring executives in the construction industry about overcoming adversity, challenges, and successes. And with that said, today I have Jonathan on the phone with me. So rather, as I do every week, rather than me tell your story, although you have an interesting background, I'd like you to kind of tell me about yourself and your company.
Yeah, so currently I'm in the position of Chief Executive Officer and President of Thoroughbred Engineering in Central Kentucky. So we service Kentucky and the surrounding states in this region of the USA. So currently we are at, I'll give you a current and then I'll go backwards, but currently we are at 38 employees, and we have a full range of engineering, civil, environmental, structural, surveying, construction monitoring, construction engineering, and then a little bit of deep foundation construction. So that's our current makeup. Moving backwards, me and my partners, we acquired Thoroughbred Engineering, which was a very local, just site civil engineering company in 2014. And at the time, they just had 2 people. And then so in the last 5-6 years, we've grown it to 38. We're really blessed to be able to do this. And mainly our growth is off of just adding service lines and being a better, a full range of service for owners and then other design professionals and contractors.
So did you grow up in Kentucky?
I did. I actually grew up where you're located, Nicholasville, Kentucky. My father, I was in engineering really early. My father was the city engineer there in Nicholasville for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Before that, he worked in consulting engineering. He was a graduate of University of Kentucky, and I am as well. And I also have a physics degree from Kentucky Wesleyan University.
So I take it you're a Wildcats fan.
I am, yes.
So you grew up around construction because your dad was involved. What interests you about it to want to go into it?
So the biggest interest for me was, just the wide variety of what you get to do. If you look at civil engineering and construction as a whole, there's millions of things you can do, and it's not the same methodical work every day. I rarely have a day, just like you, I'm sure that's the same. And then being able to help projects and help economies move forward is something that I'm really passionate about.
So when you graduated college, where'd you go? Where'd you work before you kind of landed where you're at now?
Yes, I was really fortunate. My first summer of college, so after my freshman year, I started working as just a construction QC inspector for a large geotechnical and construction company, engineering company. And I worked every summer there, and then also part-time during the semesters. And through that, I got to really be engaged with the local, especially here in Kentucky, the local, contractors and the local projects that were going on, and also get a lot of experiencing industrial, commercial, heavy civil, almost every, even big wastewater projects. I got to see all that before I ever graduated. And then I stayed on with that company once I graduated, and we ended up getting placed onto a very heavy civil, it was a $2 billion Louisville Bridges job. And I was there for 4 years whenever I was a very, a younger engineer, and got to, I got, 8 years of experience in 4 years, and I have the hours to prove it. So that you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do, unfortunately.
7 days a week, and we were just, getting stuff done over there. So very fortunate to have that here in our backyard.
So what led you to the opportunity? You said you guys acquired. Did you go to work for Thoroughbred, or how did that work?
So my partner, Darren Croucher, he had started a company before, and then he bought Thoroughbred Engineering, and then I came in just slightly after he purchased them. But the way we hooked up, we were both at a company called Core Property Sciences back in the day. He was a manager at that time, and I was just a young, wasn't even graduate engineer then. And so I had, coming off the Louisville Bridges project and getting that experience, and then, being placed, I was in a big company, a very niche type scope of work, was paid well, just got a little bored. And the inside of me, I just started thinking, okay, I started doing the math. How much money do I need to start my own company? I just got licensed. I had a lot of contacts. I felt like it was the right time to do that for me and my family. And so I reached out to Darren, knowing him and what he had done. And then he actually brought this opportunity to me. And I said, go, I said yes. And I'm so glad I did, because, it's one thing I did very much enjoy being at a large company and getting to see what I got to see. I wouldn't trade that for anything from a career standpoint, but there's something about being able to at least be in decent control of decisions and, business plans and relationships, that you get as a business owner. So that's really what drew me to that.
So what, you mentioned before that you grew the company via different lines of effort. Can you talk about, what would Thoroughbred do, or what were they doing, and what do they do now? What's the difference?
Yeah, so Thoroughbred back in, they started in '86 in a town called Georgetown, Kentucky. Toyota Manufacturing built a Camry plant there in '86. And so Brent Combs, who started it, and Greg Johnson, his partner, they started doing a lot of the residential development engineering and surveying as that town grew, with Toyota being in that location. So they were a local site civil. They did a lot, maybe in the surrounding counties as well, and they did very well for what their scope of work was. They stuck to what they knew, and they did it well, and they have a great name in that community. So what we did when we came, we had the construction, geotech background, and we brought that into that company. So we had the name when we bought them, and then from that, you get a client, maybe just a surveying service for a client, and then all of a sudden you let them know that, hey, we do this. We bought drill rigs. We had that capability, and then all of a sudden, a minimal client from a revenue standpoint, you can double, triple, 5 times the amount of fees with that same client, just by having those multiple services. So that was our organic growth. And then over time, as our growing a company, you get more people, you get more qualified people, you're able to spend a little bit more money on getting more and more qualified to do more and more work. And then so with the organic growth of having the multiple business services, we also were very aggressive in putting money back into the company.
So what is your core focus of your company? Is it with general contractors? What's your core client? What's the core service that you guys offer?
So I will say we're in four main buckets from internally, like division buckets. And so surveying, civil, geotech, and construction services. And then we also have business focuses under that. But, really it swings from year to year, and it swings even seasonally who's hot and who's not from the standpoint of revenue. Mm-hmm. But, when I look at core focus, I go a little bit deeper. The what of what we do is important, and that's how we turn fees. But, the why is very important to me, and that's the clients. And so we like to get to owners when possible, but we also like teaming in design build focus with contractors or CMs or architects, other design professionals. But, so the clients is a big part of it. And then the communities that we work in, and then our employees. And so I call it the three-legged stool. And I want all those 3 things to be at the focus of everything we do. But we do like to get to the owners, and that's where we can generate the most value for a project.
So, you mentioned like different plans that you had, and you grew different revenue streams. What's your, can you kind of give me an overview of what your 5-year plan looks like?
Yeah, 5-year plan, that's interesting. When I think about that, sometimes looking out 5 days or 5 months is even uncertain, just because we we try to stay very agile.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to look out, and we all do this as business owners. We look out at variables that maybe we can't control, whether it's economy, or it's political, or it's money being spent in certain markets, or availability of resources. So we do, from a 5-year plan standpoint, we would like to diversify our clientele so that we can withstand variables changing in the economy. We'd like to get into more heavy civil, and we're making marketing efforts to do so. And then we're not afraid to do a little bit more on the construction side and construction management, or even more of the installation of the geo construction that we already do.
It's funny how, like, when you first start a company, you have a 1 month plan,
Right.
and then we just recently went through, because I hate to think of myself as old, but I have about 10 years left in the company, and we kind of did a 10-year plan, kind of my exit plan, and it was a kind of an eye-opening thing, and it's funny when it's just you and a few other people. It's like, why do we need to do a plan? We're all here, so, but as you grow, if you don't have a plan, it can fall apart really quickly.
Right. And I've noticed, a big part of it is when you're first starting, you wear so many hats.
Mm-hmm.
And you always fantasize about, hey, man, it'd be nice if I could put that hat away or give that hat to somebody else. But then in the application of actually being able to do that, sometimes it's hard to let go.
Yeah, the delegation I fight with every day with my staff, because that's you're right. What I learned is that sometimes when you give things up, it gets done better than you did it.
Oh, yeah.
So.
and it's okay if it's different,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that's sometimes hard to take. You have to be able to lay your pride down to delegate effectively. And that's something that I'm really thoughtful of daily, and I hope I am.
Well, it's funny how, like, that you bring up a great point. I was in a leadership training course when I was in the military, and they were talking about how people can do things just as effectively, just different. And they had us do like a basic assessment, a skills assessment. And then from that, they found out that I was like a major, type A, be organized, almost on the OCD range, And then they had the guy who sat next to me actually was on the other side of the spectrum. And then they asked us both to leave the room, and then they came back in and they drew a picture up on the board, and it said, "What do you see?" And I was like, "Well, a moon, water, and a beach." And then they brought him in, and he said, "I see myself sitting on the beach drinking an adult beverage." And he went on and told this long story, and I just thought, how different are we? But we both we both were able to accomplish the exact same thing, and that was kind of eye-opening for me. But
yeah, that's something we do. Whenever you do those personality assessments, or there's a whole bunch of different ones, but I really gravitate toward the strength finders, just because we're all uniquely. We all have these unique abilities, and when you can get a unity around a bunch of different unique abilities, that's a I don't know how you lose in that standpoint.
so how do you guys as an organization prepare for the future? I mean, going from where you guys were to where you guys are right now, and by the way, congratulations. That's a just being a small business owner myself, and know how difficult it can be to grow an organization to the size that you are now. But how do you prepare for the future? I mean, I know you mentioned there's a lot of variables there, and you want to be flexible. But do you guys have a planning process, or how do you guys do that in your organization?
Yeah, and I would like to say I have a great answer, and we have all these checklists and plans and diagrams, but we really don't. What I've found out, I'm that type of person. I like to-do lists. I like a little bit more planning. I like to know what tomorrow holds. And then on the flip side of that, my two, and I haven't mentioned, Jeff Garrison is the other main partner. Then we have an associate partner, Jordan Haney, but we all have a different way of looking or being comfortable working or looking into the future. So, but the way we've been successful is being consistent from a risk standpoint. We try to be aggressive. We calculate risks, and we'll take on, some things that maybe others wouldn't. But we want to be aggressive. So the way we look at it is when there's an opportunity comes up, we all get together, we look at it, and then if it's something that we can see, hey, we can multiply this or add some staff that has expertise in this, or hey, these type of opportunities keep coming up and we keep giving away these fees, then we'll look at, what can we do to capture that so that we can add more value. And that's the point. But so when I look into the future, we have some ideas about, where the size of different markets, and then we have our eyes on different geographic locations. So if I were to say, 5-10 years from now, for our company at the current where we are today, I'd like to be in a couple different markets with some key people, offices organically growing in those markets. We may add some more service lines. We may be able to, team with some people and get into more federal work. So, there's some ideas, and it's just staying on our toes and being aggressive when we see an opening.
What significant event has really shaped the business model that you guys have today? I would jump to a conclusion to say it's, kind of like when you bought the business, but I could be wrong there.
Yeah, I think internally, when I was able to see, because Darren was in it first, when I was able to see his vision and understand that we are going to succeed by failing, meaning we can't be afraid to fail, that was significant for us, because then I could step into the role I'm at now, and then he could step into a more suitable role for his strengths. And then once we did that, we really took off. I mean, between years 3 and where we are now, it's been significant growth. And I will say that, maybe years 1 to 3, you say from a percentage standpoint, it might have been bigger, but when you look at total quality, the people here and what we were generating, I would say these last 2 years have been very significant. And it's because we came internally, we were able to unify and then shift around from a leadership standpoint to get things rolling pretty good. And then obviously you have, when you land some good sized clients, good sized contracts that are stable revenue generators for your company, you're able to drop off some of the services that, the profit's not really there. So we've been able to just grow that way. And so, yeah, outside of just taking the opportunity to buy Thoroughbred, and I'll give Darren all the credit for that. It's been that internal shifting around and mindset change to be all pulling in the same direction.
How has COVID? Have you felt the repercussions of COVID, or what's your take on it?
Actually, and there may be an opportunity cost here for us, but we have not felt it at all. We've actually grown through it. And I don't know if it's because we're in the Midwest. Some of our biggest clients, one of our biggest clients is App Harvest, and they're a startup ag tech company that's doing some large scale production facilities for different vegetables. And COVID, how everything went down with COVID, it's only accelerated their business model, because we need more or better food distribution through the United States, locally grown food. So they've only accelerated, which we've accelerated with them. So there's been a lot of factors that have caused us not to feel it at all. And then the line of work we do, probably half of our folks can be very productive at home. So we just shifted to that. And then we have a lot of field people like you do that are out on project sites, and you just take the precautions needed, but you're still on those jobs, and those are progressing. So we have literally not felt it one bit. We've added, I think, 5 people since March, 5 or 6. And then, my only thought is I want to make sure that I'm talking to a lot of people who have felt it, so that, I do still learn from it and don't have opportunity costs because we didn't have any hardship.
Did obviously you have different partners involved in the business and stuff. What is it about you, your skills and abilities? And I know this is a tough one because, a lot of people, are humble about this, but what skills and ability do you have that is the reason that you're in the position that you're in, and rather than one of your partners?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Sometimes it's a struggle to figure out, what those strengths are, or how am I being effective? Because the results are there, but then you look at yourself and you're like, well, I have this failure, and we want to tend to look at our weaknesses. But I would say for me, I'm great in support. So, being the CEO and president, the way I communicate it to everybody is I'm the chief servant. And so I can transition and move throughout the company and keep our people active, meaning I can help them be more effective and more efficient. And then Darren, he's just a visionary. He sees opportunity. He has ideas. And he's a super technical, great engineer. And then my other partner, he's great in operations. He comes from a heavy civil construction background, but he has a master's degree in geotechnical engineering. So we really have just a great fit right now. And I see my strength as really that support person, outside of, I'm trained as an engineer and enjoy the project management piece.
So moving on to kind of like advice here, because, we have a lot of listeners that, just, if you're like me, even when you finish school, you have this desire to learn consistently. And,
Right.
The common question I get from people is, hey, what advice would you give somebody who's, looking to do what you did? What are some of the, traps? What are some of the things that you need to keep focused on? Those type of things. So what advice would you give?
Yeah, I'll go to the traps first because I think that's important. So a trap for definitely a young professional, or even a young construction, if you're coming up as a project super, or a foreman, the trap is it's Monday to Saturday, Monday, Saturday, Monday, Saturday, and you spend a whole year working for other people and never think about working for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you got to always be developing something within yourself, because if you're stagnant, other people are passing you up. And a good example is when I was in college, I would look around. I guess I just had this innate sense from the beginning, but I would look around and go, I just have to beat all these people. Like, it was always a competition for me. When you're in a class, especially when there's a graded on a curve. And then business is the same way. It's not that I'm out to get anybody, but I just have to put in the work and work harder and be in the room. And I'm going to work hard to be in the room that will lead to success and give our people opportunities, make our communities better, and provide more value to our clients. So that's one of the things I really highly encourage people to do is spend that time on yourself so that you can be more effective. And what you want to be able to do is multiply those strengths within you into other people when you're growing a business.
So what do you think in your life, what are some of your biggest failures and successes that have kind of led you to where you are today?
Yeah, failures, a lot of the failures, you can go to the contract side, which I know a lot of people listening to this will be able to relate, but, just getting in bad contracts, I've had 6-figure mistakes, and those will teach you a good lesson. And also,
if you can stay in business,
teach you how to deal with not being able to sleep at night, so, and you should feel those, and I've learned from those. So contracts are a big thing, and just being on your P's and Q's and not putting, risk out there for your company that's not warranted for the type of work you're doing. And then a lot of the other mistakes are HR or relational. rushing to hire people, putting people in positions maybe that they're not necessarily fit for, just to try to plug holes.
Mm-hmm.
One of our mottos is, from the very early standpoint, is me and Darren were in a room, and I said, what's your draft, model? Are you best available, or do you plug the hole? And we both agree we're best available. So at this point, we try to look for the talent and the people that fit what we're doing and the way we're heading. And then from there, you can teach, or you can, help people succeed. But if you have the opposite, if you just go for the technical ability, a lot of times that's really going to hurt you in the long run.
So what are do you have any specific instances that everybody wants to hear a story here?
Oh yeah.
That can, I always talk about, I don't like to use the word failures, but failure is not a bad thing. But learning experiences. Do you have any specific learning experience you'd like to, kind of describe?
Yeah, I mean, there's one that comes to mind very early when I was probably 18 or 19 in the field. I got up to the site, and I trained with a couple of people that knew what they were doing, some engineers, and I saw how they made decisions. So I started going out to sites, and I was making engineering decisions as a 19-year-old, telling them to undercut here. We need to take all that fill up. It's not passing. As a QC, a young QC technician, I was I'm sure a contractor's worst nightmare. And so there's one job where I actually made a decision. I got reprimanded pretty good, and I may have put the company at a little bit of a risk by just not knowing and being young and naive. But that's one that comes to mind that always sticks with me, because I see it when we hire a young engineer or young technician with that type of work we're doing. That's something I always tell them, because anybody can fall into that trap. But another one is, I was going back to that contract issue. Just when you're growing a company and you get into a room that maybe you're not ready for, a project you might not be ready for, or a client that's you're not ready for. I made a rush decision on a pretty big job, and got under contract, and the contract was not favorable at all for us on the design side. So I was able to get 0 change orders, and we probably had, 50 that we could have gotten. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. So, that was the 6-figure mistake that I'm talking about, and I've shared it with people in our company. But, it's just, you got to be confident in the room you're in. And if you're not, maybe you need to go back, glean a little bit more wisdom before you jump into something that could put, what you're doing at risk.
What, if you were give any personal advice, and I know this kind of piggybacks here, but personal advice to somebody in the executive level position, I know for myself, I find it's important to kind of sit around other people that deal with the same things that I deal with every single day. If you were doing that, what advice would you give to somebody, at your same level, in general?
Yeah, at the same level. So the context of that would be, where we are. We're not a big corporation. We don't have, we're able to dictate policies, procedures, what we're doing. So this may not apply, but I think it's still important. So what I try to do is, and this is going to sound weird, but bring work to home and home to work.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I see it all the time in especially in professional people, executives, anybody in the consulting. We put our lives in buckets, or it's easy to do that. So you can be, a different person from work to home, or you can justify working longer hours away from your families or other, other significant people in your life because of this, that, the other. But it's important in my life, and I try to preach this when I can to a younger person, or the other groups I'm in, is I try to incorporate work into my home life so that my wife and my children understand what I'm doing, and it makes me a more real person to them. And then the other way around is the same. So with my clients or with our people at our office or other professionals, bringing home to work so that they know, hey, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a community member, I serve on these nonprofit boards, I'm involved with this church, causes that are important to me, things like that. So it's a more holistic idea of who a person is, and that's going to give you a much deeper relationship with everyone you work for, client or just colleague.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that. I have one things that somebody once told me that when I was very young, and I still hold this to today. It's that you you can't do a good business deal with a bad business person. And
Right.
I thought about that, and I thought to myself, well, some people say, oh, well, this is just business. Sometimes that's a cop out, because it's like, and so I always try to do the right thing, and who you are at work is really who you should be when you roll home. And I love technology has really changed this for me. I've seen it. We've been in business for about 13 years, and in the 13 years we've been in business, I've seen how much it's changed. And, it's not like you can just drop the keys in the desk and walk away anymore, which is a bad thing, but
No.
a good thing too, because you can integrate it into your life, like, when my kids are little, I'd have dinner with them and hang out with them a little bit. And then late in the evening, I would, instead of going back to the office, I'd just pull my laptop open and work,
Right.
So that's it's kind of interesting that you say that. So we're to the speed round here at the end. I'm going to give you different categories, and I'm going to ask you to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most important, 1 being the least important. Now, all of these categories, they could all be 10s, so don't be afraid to say that. If
Gotcha.
it's that important. So we'll start with number 1, and if you want to explain your number, that's fine. A lot of people like to. So the first item is scheduling.
I would say a 10. And I'll say that because our clients, you got to get to market, whether that's getting a lease in there or getting produce out, or, schedule's a 10 for me.
Estimating.
5. And I'll say that because I like to know that when I'm going into the estimating, I already have the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Contract administration.
8.
And I separate contract administration because that's the actual administration of it, the actual execution of it.
Right.
On the other side is contracts. What do you think of contracts?
Well, as you can tell from my story, it's pretty important. I'm up there in the 8 as well. Just because of the day and age we live in, a handshake, there's still people that want to do handshake deals, but it's hard to do that right now.
Absolutely. Design.
I'll say a 4 or 5, and in the context of that is the actual design itself, meaning, when we approach design, since we're construction minded, we're not giving you design that we have a lot of ego behind.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, I'm not going to say this is the only way it's going to be designed, because 98% of the time there's multiple, designs that will work for that application. So design for me is something that you want a good, clean design, but the design itself, I want the team to be comfortable with that and the owners to be comfortable with that.
Accounting.
Business owner, I'd say a 10.
And when some people say, it's funny how the numbers go. I always want to say with accounting, how could it be any less than a 9? Because you could, as David Dean once said in one of my podcasts, he said, we're in the business that you could be going bankrupt and not even know about it. So it's important.
You can, if you're operating off feel for more than a day, you're going to be in trouble.
Business development.
10.
And
It's relationships. I mean, that's the key.
And I hear this commonly because I taught at Eastern for years, and the common thing I hear from younger people are, that relationships are not as important. They don't feel the value is as important. And I try to explain, you can have all the technology in the world, but relationships is what you need when you get in trouble. So
Yeah, and I'll say, if you're at a big firm, you're just used to being fed.
mhm.
Or if you're at a big construction company, hey, we got this job in Houston. It's more of an operational thing. You don't put it in the context of what it took. And so that completely changed for me. I was at a big firm and I took that for granted, but then I saw that, man, if you want a good relationship, that's a 2-year deal right there, just minimum. And that's a lot of time and effort.
And last but not least, leadership.
10. Without vision, the people perish is the principle that I use for that. So, leadership, you can't neglect it, and you can't try too hard either. So, it's just got to be right.
Well, I want to give you the last word, of course, as I do with all my guests. I do want to say before I let you have the last word that I've heard a lot of good things. Although we haven't had a chance to run across paths, I've heard of you guys and your company and you as an individual for a while, and I've heard some really good things. And congratulations on what you guys have done. I know it's not a easy thing to do what we do and do it successfully. So congratulations to you and your crew. And as I said, you get the last word.
Well, I appreciate that, Scott, and you the same. I mean, what you all have done is great. The only thing I'll say is that, as if you're listening to this, just, the daily grind and enjoy it. So that's what I try to do, just the joy of the daily grind and having a grateful heart for the opportunity that we all have in this industry. I mean, this is a fantastic industry, and I'm just appreciative to have my part.
Well, thank you once again, Jonathan. Next week on CONEXEC, we'll have another guest, and we'll see you next week.